welcome to the Onboarding Online Choice session. In this webinar, I will share with you some of the elements of onboarding in an international school. These elements can help school leaders make choices for their new hires in both in-person and online contexts. My name is Graham Manning. I'm a teacher and campus coordinator at Yangon International School. My doctoral dissertation in educational leadership focused on the elements of onboarding foreign faculty into international schools. This presentation is divided into 4 parts. The first part concerns the research involved in developing the International School Onboarding Program and Field Guide, or ISO PFG as I like to call it. The remaining 3 parts are about the different phases of the ISO PFG. Of course, I'm not going to go through all of the literature. Much of it is embedded in the ISO PFG, which I will share about in the following sections. Right now, I would like to take you through some of the early research that much of the literature stems from. 6 organizational socialization tactics were proposed in the mid to late 70s. They are collective versus individual, formal versus informal, sequential versus random, fixed versus variable, serial versus discursive, and investiture versus divestiture. Each of these bipolar socialization tactics are not meant to be black and white, but exist on spectrums. For example, between collective and individual, while onboarding a group of newcomers, there will be times when the group meets during orientation for a collective introduction to the organization, though there will likely also be individual meetings between the newcomer and the principal or a section partner. Collective refers, of course, to group socialization and togetherness versus individual, isolated, and apprenticeship-style practices. Formal refers to the program being separate from the veteran members. This is manifest in orientation presentations meant for newcomers or social network groups for newcomers. Informal tends toward a more trial and error approach to onboarding. An example might be an apprenticeship program where the rules are not clearly defined. Sequential and fixed refer to the degree in which the experience employs known steps leading up to a goal, and whether the program includes a timeline. Serial refers to the role being filled by someone who will carry out the duties in a similar manner to their predecessor, and the members of the organization will help groom them appropriately. Disjunctive refers to the role being filled by someone who will bring innovative new ideas or a different approach to a role or occupy a new role. An example of this might be recruiting an IB coordinator in a move toward offering an IB curriculum. Finally, investiture refers to the notion that organizations wish to build upon the characteristics that the recruit brings with them, as opposed to divestiture, which means to strip away the old ways of the recruit and build them in a new mold. Schools adopting standards-based grading may wish to recruit educators that have experience with SBG and can provide guidance for those making the transition from traditional grading. This would be an example of investiture. The tactics listed in black here comprise what later theorists called institutionalized onboarding. This comprises an institutionalized onboarding program. Research shows that newcomers to an organization favor an institutionalized onboarding. By contrast, those that experience an individualized program will lead to ambiguity and innovation role orientations, which basically means they will learn on their own and figure things out by themselves and come up with ideas that may not align with the organization. The pre-arrival phase aims to give the new hire access to information and resources that will allow them to be successful in the first few weeks of teaching in the new international school. This phase starts about 6 months prior to the date of arrival for the newly hired faculty members. This phase is the least studied period in the organizational socialization literature. 2 components comprise this phase: the online platform, and the social network group. The online platform focuses on disseminating information that would typically be presented during orientation. The purpose of this component is to make resources available to the new hire that front-load orientation week. This will allow new hires to navigate orientation and the first weeks of school more successfully. School leaders will need to decide which platform to use to share pertinent information to the new hires. Examples could be Google Classroom, Microsoft Classroom, Blackboard, Dropbox. Also, school leaders need to decide which items to include in the online platform to help lessen the load of new information presented during orientation. The purpose of the social network group is to have a place where newcomers can connect with each other, to returning teachers and administrators. Posts in the social network group may include photos of daily life at the school and in the host city, school events, performances, and special activities, suggested reading and videos that introduce the newcomer to the culture of the host nation, preemptive answers to common questions like currency, electric voltage, customs, cultural etiquette, transportation, and language. The arrival and orientation is a phase where members of the organization are the incoming teachers. This phase begins when the newcomers arrive in the host country, and it lasts approximately 2 to 3 weeks after arrival. The components in this phase are the planned welcome, the arrival dossier, orientation, and the planned social events. The planned welcome component is a planned first impression that aims for all teachers to get a proper greeting and welcome upon arrival. A greeting at the airport, some refreshments, maybe some local currency, a local SIM card, a drive to their residence, a welcome basket. Planned actions tend to have a favorable impact on the teacher's first impression. The arrival dossier is either a physical document or a PDF that is given to the incoming teacher upon arrival. Inside are important and emergency contacts, information about the neighborhood, taxis, other transportation in the host city, food delivery services, cellular services, and other miscellaneous references to accommodate the incoming teacher. The contents will vary from school to school as each has unique arrangements with teachers. The orientation schedule is the most recognized component of the ISO PFG and receives the most attention in the onboarding process. This is where school administrators disseminate pertinent information about the school. The child protection policy is usually embedded in this schedule. Policies and procedures that the newcomer needs for success in the organization are included, as is the curriculum, tech platforms, communications, school mission, vision, and goals. Much information is shared during the orientation. Using the internet platform in the pre-arrival phase to front-load much of the contents of orientation can help reduce newcomers' uncertainty and lighten the processing load of new information. The purpose of the planned social events is to introduce the newcomers to the school, neighborhood, and host city via social events that promote authentic interaction. Social bonds can be made and strengthened between newcomers and the returning faculty. And in an in-person onboarding context, this may include a walking tour of the school, the neighborhood, and parts of the city, dinner events at well-reviewed restaurants, cultural shows, and sporting events. In the online context, events may include trivia nights, the Fab 5 Photo Fest, which is an event where members meet online and take turns sharing 5 photos from their summer with short anecdotes to introduce themselves and break the ice with new colleagues. Cooking shows and escape rooms are other ideas for building camaraderie among the faculty. The transition phase occurs after the arrival and orientation phase and continues as necessary up to 6 months afterward. School leaders and returning members of the faculty help guide the incoming teacher as needed. This supports their psychological contract and mitigates culture shock. The transition partnership is designed to pair the incoming teacher with two veteran faculty members, one that aligns with the incoming teacher's demographic and one that complements their section. The aim of the transition team partnership is to join the newcomer with a member of the faculty who teaches in the same section or department as a guide for specific help regarding class resources, etc. Another partnership is with a faculty member who is in the same demographic or interest to share about venues and events that may be of interest to the newcomer. For example, those with child dependence or with an interest in photography. Feedback about this component communicates that this can happen naturally, but the literature indicates that joining newcomers with motivated veterans is quite beneficial. If you're interested in the workbook we created for this presentation, simply point your cell phone or tablet device at this QR code and be directed to a page that will ask you to make a copy of the document. Once you have made a copy, I would suggest you share it to your drive and locate it on your laptop. This is a workbook we created for those who join the choice session. In this workbook, you will find a lot of language that was used in this presentation to describe the ISO PFG. So feel free to share it appropriately with your colleagues. One final thought is outsourcing onboarding. There is a company called SchoolSpot that handles much of the onboarding legwork for new faculty to international schools. I was given a tour of their program and was quite impressed with their product. SchoolSpot centralizes the collection of documents and HR forms, keeps certificates, IDs, and other important files secure, provides pre-arrival training, and provides engagement reporting of new hires to warn organizations of potential no-shows. For more information, visit their website at www.skoolspot.com. This is the time in the presentation set aside for Q&A. What I propose is that if you have a question, please submit it through this form. And if you don't have a question but are interested in hearing others' questions and answers soon. If you'd like to reach me, my email address is ganning@ysmyanmar.com. Thank you for your time and listening to this presentation.